Now it's live.
Ok, a gente está aqui ao vivo na Sony para bater um papo com o Leigh Whannell, então a gente vai se apresentar para ele e vocês vão saber quem nós somos também. So, Leigh, hi.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine. We're live here from Brazil. So, I'm Roberto Sadowski. We actually talked on the phone about, I don't know, a month and a half ago.
I do remember.
Yeah, and the guys here are...
Hi, Leigh. I'm Pedro. I'm right from Cineclick. It's a famous website from cinema here in Brazil.
Oh, hi, mate. How are you?
Hi, Leigh. I'm Daniel Pires, and I have a horror channel on YouTube.
Okay. Hi, Daniel.
Hello, my name is Lucas Aparecido. I am from Pipocando. It's a YouTube channel. Pipocando is like popcorning or something like this in English.
Excellent. Well, hi to all you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me today.
Cool. So we're going to be grilling you with questions here, and we also have questions from other journalists that they send us, and from fans, and from a lot of people. So, are you ready?
So ready.
So, I'm going to start with a very basic question for you. So you wrote the Saw movies in the beginning, and you wrote Insidious, and you're also an actor, and now you're directing the third movie. So why did you take this leap right now?
I think it's something I've always wanted to do, directing. You know, I went to film school to learn to be a director. You know, when I was younger, that's where I met James Wan. And we sort of started working together. And then when we left film school, we just thought that there was strength in numbers. So we stayed working together, and I definitely drew a lot of strength from sort of partnering up with James. I don't know if either of us could have made it in the film industry alone. Like, we sort of liked operating as a team. And so I was happy in that situation. You know, I was happy writing movies and having James direct them, like Saw, like Insidious. But that first kid that went to film school to be a director, he still exists, you know, somewhere inside me. And so when James went off to do Furious 7, is it Fast 7, Furious 7, Fast and Furious 7? Not sure. But when he went off to do that, and the director's chair for Insidious 3 was vacant, you know, the producers asked me to do it, and I just thought, this is the perfect time. Like, it's something I've always wanted to do but haven't gotten to yet, and here's an opportunity. And so, you know, and in a way, I don't think I would have been ready to direct before this movie. I think I've been learning by watching James. You know, I've really learnt a lot by writing and by watching James.
Okay. Rapaziada?
Oh, I will start my question. So, write a movie is not a simple thing, as the same way that directing a movie and acting in the same movie is not so simple. It was very difficult to you to perform those three functions on the same movie?
Yeah, it was difficult at times. I mean, writing and directing, you can kind of separate, you know, because you do the writing, you're in a bubble, like I'm in my office at home or wherever, and I'm writing, and I'm sort of directing the film in my head and thinking about it, but I'm concentrating so much on the story and the characters. And then once everybody signs off on the script and says, okay, this is what we're going to shoot, I really took off my writer's hat and put the director's hat on. And I was pretty ruthless. Like, I was looking at the script as if somebody else wrote it. Like, that page is gone, that page is gone. You know, I would say things like, oh, that dialogue's stupid. And, you know, of course, the classic joke that the crew really loved, they thought it was hilarious, was when I'd be like, who wrote this? I don't know if they were laughing because they wanted to, because I was the boss, or whether they really thought it was funny. But basically, I was pretty ruthless with the script, and really where the sort of multitasking comes in is with acting and directing. You know, when you're acting in a scene and you're directing, I found it, at least for the first time I'd ever done it, it was quite surreal, because you're in a scene talking to an actor and then you have to run over to the monitor and watch it objectively. So I found that a bit weird. I think the next film I direct, maybe I won't act in it, just to get that experience of purely staying behind the camera.
Right, I see.
Hi, Leigh. and many people here I'm sorry, I'm so nervous because I am a big fan of Insidious trilogy. People from Twitter send me a couple questions. This is one. You are a writer and actor and director, and I need to do this question. Do you believe in an underworld?
In another world, like a spiritual world.
It's another spiritual world because this so many parts in this movie. I saw some things of the spiritums. Yes or not?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't seen anything of the spirit world for myself. I know a lot of people who have seen ghosts or had experience with something like a ghost, a spirit, a presence, or whatever you want to call it. And some of the people are, very close to me, very close friends or even family. So when they tell me stories about something that happened to them that was strange or ghostly, I really believe them. I'm not a skeptic in that way. I haven't had an experience myself. So, in a way, I would say that I'm very open to it. I don't 100% believe and have faith. I'm kind of agnostic in a way when it comes to the spiritual world. Like, I'm not a skeptic, but I'm also not a 100% believer in the spirit world and ghosts. I'm just so interested. I think that there's a lot that human beings don't know about everything. There's a lot we don't know about this planet, and I mean, there's a lot we don't know about space. I mean, it really gets me that there's this infinite black void right outside our planet that just goes on and on that we know nothing about. We know this much about it. And to me, that's spiritual. Like space, other planets, whether there's life on other planets, that's part of the great unknown. That almost falls under the same category to me as ghosts and spirituality. So I'm fascinated by that, and I'm really, really open to it. I love writing about it.
Hi, Lee. The new movie Stories happens before the first film, before the first Insidious. When did you have this idea?
I had the idea to do a prequel pretty early on in the process when they first gave me the job of writing Insidious 3. I was sitting down thinking about what it could be, and I like that stage of writing when it's not shaped yet. It could be anything. It could have been set in Brazil. I wish it had been. It could have been anything, and I started with what I wanted in the film. I'm like, okay, what do I want? Obviously, you need to have ghosts. It's an Insidious film, and I realized that the Lambert family from the first two movies had kind of been through the mill. They'd had enough ghostly experiences, so I wanted to move on from them. And then I thought about who would be the star of the film. If it wasn't Rose Byrne or Patrick Wilson, who's the star? And it makes sense to put Lynn Shay from the first movie in the starring role. And then I realized that we killed her in the first movie, which was unfortunate. And by virtue of the fact that we killed her in the first movie, to tell a story about her and about her life, you need to go back in time. So it was really Lynn Shay and the fact that we killed off her character in the first movie that drove this film to be a prequel.
Well, she can always come back in another one, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mean in future Insidious films?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, if they were doing another Insidious film, I think it could easily pick up after this third film. So take place between this film and the first movie, if you know what I mean. So kind of another prequel, another film set before the first one. But that to me would be the most logical progression.
So these days we see a lot of movies that are made possible because new special effects and CGI and all these things. And on the same hand, they kind of look not real anymore because as we can do anything we want with technology, sometimes we do too much. You know what I mean? Sometimes things doesn't look real. And I see that you still like using practical effects on set. So what's your relationship with technology and with doing the practical things on set? Was it a scary set? Were people scared and screaming over there?
Well, you know, it wasn't really a scary set. Like, you know, as you know, film sets are such busy places. You know, there's people running around, there's workers. Every time you're not rolling, as soon as you call cut, the work starts. Because they're always, even if you're shooting right here, they're building a set over there. So I was always amazed whenever I would say, and cut, all of a sudden you would just hear bang, 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 like everyone hammering, you know, saws going, and pardon the pun. And so it wasn't really a scary set. I tried to make it intimate in the takes, but I agree with you about CGI. You know, I feel like a lot of it looks like high-end animation to me. It feels less real than miniatures did. You know, when I was growing up, and you know, when you guys were younger, we grew up watching movies. Except the gentleman in the glasses in the blue hoodie, he probably was born when I was finishing high school. You know, we grew up watching these movies that use miniatures and keys and these old versions of special effects. You know, and I remember when CG was first coming into play, people would say, oh, this looks so much better than the old special effects. But I'm starting to think that the old special effects really felt better to me, using miniatures and especially using prosthetics and makeup effects. If you think of a film like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, the makeup effects in that feel more real and tactile to me than CGI. It doesn't feel real at all to me. And I was really heartened to watch the new Star Wars trailer that J.J. Abrams is doing, because it seems like he's using CG as he has to, but he's using a lot of practical effects with makeup and aliens, and I love that. I love that he's doing that. At least it looks like he's doing that. And so I agree with you, you know, and the Insidious movies, first of all, I think when you've got a ghost standing in the room with someone, you actually need to have someone in the room. You can't add it later with CG. But also, it's an aesthetic that I just like. Plus, these are low-budget movies, you know. CG is expensive, so I would rather, you know, save money on the budget and put an actor in the room in makeup than pay some post-production house to build me a demon with CG. You know, you use it as a paintbrush. I mean, there are gifted artists working with CG, but I feel like the best way to utilize them is to have them come in and accentuate something that's already there, and they did beautiful work on this film. I'm not denigrating what they do. I just agree with you that you've got to put practical effects first, you know.
Okay.
I have another question.
Go
It's kind of different. There is always a bizarre story behind the horror movies, that the crew could get cursed or something like this. Working on this environment, do you think this is just a myth, or do you believe, or something happened to you before while recording this movie?
No, nothing really happened. I mean, I've certainly been interested in reading about the Poltergeist curse and The Exorcist, all the things that happened on the set of The Exorcist. It's fascinating, and you know, it's as horror fans, it's stuff that we love to read about, but it certainly didn't happen to me. I mean, we are talking about ghosts and these other dimensions, but I never felt a bad presence. Although maybe I'm just not receptive to it. Lynn Shay, who plays Elise, obviously, she is very sensitive to spirits and her environment in general, you know. She has a lot of feelings. She walks into a room and she feels the room, and I think she could definitely feel a presence on this movie, she told me a couple of times. And there was nothing bad, but she said that she had some strange experiences. She got lost on the way home, driving home from the set, which never happens to her. She just had some experiences that she felt like maybe it was her headspace, like she was getting into the character so much that it started affecting her. And that was interesting to hear. But for myself, the scariest thing was the producer standing behind me telling me that we had to finish in 2 hours.
Okay, Ale, I have another question from Twitter, from Acervo Maldito. It's another horror channel on YouTube. To the character Elise, have you ever talked about making an extension version of Elise's story in a TV show, since there are infinite possibilities around her?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you know, her character does lend itself to a longer format, like a TV show. If you think about a TV show like The X-Files, it was a perfect format because you had these two investigators, Mulder and Scully, and then you could just plug them into different situations. So each week there'd be a new monster, a new, you know, experience that they had to tackle or solve. And then you had this overarching mystery that would go on. So it was kind of a good, and I feel like, you know, Elise being a psychic, you know, she fits into that format. You know, she could be investigating different cases. But I mean, I guess at the moment it's a film franchise, and I don't want to use up all the good story ideas on TV. I want to use them for film. If they keep making films, I need those ideas. But maybe one day, who knows? It could be an Elise and Specs and Tucker TV show. Who knows?
Lee, what do you think about this actual moment of the horror films? This year we had a new Poltergeist, before A Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll have the return of the Jason Voorhees next year.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this actual moment of the horror films?
I think there's some really great stuff coming out in horror. You know, It Follows, I thought was really great. Just different. Anything that's really original in horror. I love The Babadook. That was an Australian film, you know, directed by a woman, which is something that I think we need to see more of in the horror genre. Maybe we haven't seen enough of. And I feel optimistic about it. I feel good. I do think horror films are starved for quality. Horror fans, I should say. You know, you guys are horror fans like me, so you know that it's rare that a really good horror film comes along. Maybe more rare than like a really great comedy. Maybe every year you get one great comedy, or every year you get at least one great action movie. With horror, it's more like once every 3 years you get a really great horror film. And so I feel like there's good stuff coming out. I'm not a huge fan of remakes, just because I would rather create new worlds. You know, I think that's where the best stuff's going to come from, is these new worlds. And I think independent filmmakers are going to be the saviors of the horror genre, as they always have been. You know, going back to George Romero, whether it's Night of the Living Dead or the Blair Witch Project or Saw, it's always independent films that provide the new horror. It's never the studio films. You know, they're providing big action movies and sci-fi movies, but they're not necessarily providing great horror films. So I think we've got to just keep getting independent filmmakers to make this stuff.
I remember once Sam Raimi told me that starting with horror was easier, not because only he loved horror, but because it was easier to get the movie around the world. And his exact words were, even if the movie is not that good, people will see it because horror fans have this thing, because they want to check everything out. And we had Evil Dead because of that. And Guillermo del Toro told me the same thing, that when he started off in Mexico, he loved his monsters, and in the same hand, it was easier starting off in horror because movies would get seen. So where do you see yourself in there? As a horror fan only, as a filmmaker who maybe it was easier to get your feet in the water with horror,
right?
And where do you see yourself in this thing?
Well,
and what advice would you give to young filmmakers?
Okay, well, so of 3 questions, I would say, firstly, I'm a horror fan. I'm not somebody that made a horror film just to get out into the world. Both James and I love horror films. And so it came naturally to us to do that. It was interesting with Saw, though. When we wrote Saw, we actually thought we were writing more of a thriller. and then when we shot the film and when the film was marketed, it became more of a horror film. So that was interesting. But we're definitely horror fans. Having said that, it's a great genre to start out in. You're right. I mean, Sam Raimi, Guillermo del Toro, these guys are right when they say that horror travels. You can make a horror film in Brazil. You can make a horror film in Thailand, the UK, Australia. It plays in any language. And it's one of the genres that really travels across the world. And, every culture in the world has scary stories in their own version of demons, ghosts. So it's something that really plays. It's a very friendly genre to independent first-time filmmakers because, as you said, the fans of horror, they seek this stuff out. They're actively looking for the films out there from whatever country they're from. So it's kind of a combo of the two. It's like, we were horror fans, but we also knew that this was a great way to start. And my advice finally to independent filmmakers is, you have to make where your heart, you have to make the film that your heart is in. So if you're a huge fan of musicals and that's your thing, you just want to make musicals, I wouldn't recommend making a horror film just to break into the film business. Maybe a musical horror film. Like it needs to be something you're passionate about because the passion will show. So my advice to independent filmmakers would be to make the film they're most passionate about, whether it's a musical, a comedy, a drama, or a horror film. If this independent filmmaker that we're talking to is a horror fan, then go for it. Like make that film and just know that if it's good, it will find an audience. It really is a genre that is so friendly to first-time filmmakers because horror fans don't care about how expensive it is or anything like that. All they want is a good film.
Oh, so this is your first time directing a movie but not writing. And where does the inspiration come to write those horror stories?
I don't know where the inspiration comes from. It's interesting because I don't know where ideas in general come from. It's kind of a really mysterious process to me. I wish I knew where ideas came from, or I wish I had a method of just extracting them. But usually you're just sitting there waiting for these ideas to hit you. It can be quite frustrating. And I like that it's a mysterious process, though. I mean, any art form is kind of weird like that. I like that about it because I'm not a mathematical person. Anything that's numerical, my brain does not compute at all. If there's one answer, there's only one answer to 2 + 2. You can't be like, 2 + 2 is 8, because somebody will say, no, it's 4. Whereas in the art world, 2 + 2 can be 806. There's no right answer. And I love that. Like, it's all subjective. That's where I operate best, is kind of in this subjective world of just like ideas. I love ideas. And even when it applies to other art forms like songwriting, where does a song come from? Where does a melody come from? I remember, reading an interview with Paul McCartney talking about how he was getting the inspiration, and it's kind of crazy, that creative process, no matter who you are. And so for me, I just sit around and wait for an idea to hit me, and usually if I want to get inspired, maybe, or try to help the ideas come, I'll watch a really great film, or try and go and see something, or just go and live. Go out with your friends and have experiences so that you can be like, I think that sort of shakes up your brain. So yeah.
About you think Insidious 4?
Is there going to be an Insidious 4?
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I'm talking to Jason about it, Jason Blum, the producer. I just finished the other film, so I'm actually about to go to Spain on a trip, but kind of a holiday. But I'll chat to him about it. I mean, I know that Jason would love to continue with this franchise because he loves it. So yeah, it's just a matter of whether we can, come up with a story that we all love.
And would you like to direct the new one?
I don't know. It's all about the script. It's all about the idea. Seeing as I don't really have an idea, and Jason and I are still sort of talking about it, you know, about the idea of even doing another film. I won't really know until I, you know, if I ever wrote a fourth film, that's when I would know whether to direct it or not.
So we saw James Wan go from Saw to Insidious to this little independent film that he did this year.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Really
I remember that one with the cars in it. Yep.
Yeah, there you go, the cars.
Yeah.
Well, do you see yourself doing something completely different right now? I mean, what kind of offers come to your table? Are they only horror, or they come as a musical or whatever else?
I'm not getting the musicals yet, damn it, because I have a great singing voice, guys, really great. I do get a lot of horror films, you know, and I get some interesting ones, but I'm so kind of invested in directing my own stories and scripts, not because I think they're better than the other scripts. I think that that's just where I'm the most comfortable. So right now I have a sci-fi movie that I wrote a couple of years ago that I'm in the process of sort of seeing if I can direct that. But that is kind of different. It's in a different genre. It's kind of sci-fi, thriller, action. So that'll be interesting, you know. I've got a film coming out later this year called Cooties. Cooties is kind of a comedy, horror comedy, but that's kind of different. So I am doing different things in different genres.
Oh, I have a question here from another journalist. Where is it? It's right here. Yeah, his name is Carlos Eduardo. He's from a vlog called Nerdices em Debate. It's like nerds debating, which is kind of cool. and he wants to know. Oh, he's gonna put you in the fire here. He wants to know pretty much why people should go and see Insidious 3. What is about the movie that is so different that people have to leave their houses and just go to the movies and get scared?
That's a good question. Well, I think the reason they need to go and see it is because it's firstly really scary. It really delivers on the scares, and it's also has great characters. I mean, Lin Shaye is such a great actress, and you know she's been a supporting character in the other Insidious films, but now she gets to play the lead. You know, and she's such a strong actor and such a great character that I think audiences are going to love it. The fact that she gets this movie dedicated to her, and it's kind of an emotional film. Like the film's not just scares. There's a real emotional story about a young girl who's lost her mother. So I think that they're going to kind of get a roller coaster of experiences. You know, they're going to get a few laughs. They're going to be scared out of their minds, and you know they may even have a cry because there is this real emotional story to it. And they get Lin Shaye. I mean, you can't go past Lin Shaye. Never.
Agreed.
Inside this tree, we have a ghost hunter. Do you believe there are a lot of people like this around here? The ghost hunters.
Yeah, actually, when I was researching the first movie, I went on a ghost hunt with some kind of paranormal investigators in Los Angeles. I just found them on the internet. They had a Twitter page, and I kind of tweeted at them, and we were talking, and I went to this abandoned mental hospital in Los Angeles, and we kind of walked through. It was like midnight. There was no one around. There was a security guard, and we were just walking through all the different wards of this hospital, and it was pretty eerie. It was pretty fun. And, you know, I still talk to those guys. I've been on a couple of ghost hunts with them now. And you can look them up. They're called LA Paranormal. They're on Twitter. But they're just three people. They're just amateur ghost hunters. You know, they're just three people that love doing it. It's not like they have a certificate, you know, from the Ghost Hunting Society. They're just people that love it. And it's a really interesting thing, you know. It's just, I think it's a great hobby. It's better than, like, burning cars.
Ghost busting.
Yeah, ghost busting. Yeah, they haven't monetized it yet into ghost busting.
There you go.
Scary hobby.
So, Lee, I want to thank you on behalf of the guys here. We had a great time. And
Thank you.
whenever you come to Brazil, beer's on me. It's going to be fun.
Yes. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow.
All right, just come.
And Lei, you need to know some horror channels, Brazilian horror channels on YouTube. Lenda Urbana, Servo Maldito, Medo Bay. It's good.
We have a lot of people doing horror here. A lot of independent guys trying to do horror film.
Oh, nice. Nice. I cannot wait to get to Brazil. I've been to so many places in the world, but not Brazil yet. So I will definitely call you on that beer when I get there. Thank you so much, guys. This was really fun, and yeah, I really hope all the fans of the Insidious fans in Brazil get out and see this third film.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Lei. Bye.
Bye. All right.